All right. Welcome to another digital meeting of Dallas Social Toastmasters. My theme tonight is emergency preparedness on 26th of this month. So, before I get into that, I'd like to maybe go over our duty holders. So, first duty holder is actually timer, which is going to be me. So, I'll explain my duty as timer. As timer, I'll be timing the various portions of the meeting, the speeches, the table topics, and evaluations. When you get the meet the minimum time frame, I'll show up a green picture, a green card. I'm going to take my virtual background off so you can see it. But and of course the cards are written down. So then when you get halfway through your time, go to the yellow card. And when you meet your maximum time, you'll get the red card. So you see my paintings back there. That's better. All right, so green, minimum time, halfway, yellow. When you meet your maximum at red. So I can go for the speeches, the table topics, and evaluations. The speeches, Dawn's speech is going to be 5 to 7 minutes. Mark's speech, you're going to be, was it 10 to 12, right?
9 to 12.
I'm sorry, 9 to 12. Table topics, remember you must hit 1 minute to qualify, but then again, you have 2 minutes and 30 seconds your max. And evaluations are 2 to 3 minutes. So you'll get the green at 2, yellow at 2.5, and red at 3. You want to call, and I'll give my timing report. All right, so next duty holder is going to be our grammarian, who is going to be John Vessels. Can you explain your role, John?
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to be the grammarian tonight. And the job of the grammarian is to listen to all of the speeches and look for good and bad uses of the English language. Also, I will be giving you the word of the day, which today is going to be trenchant. It's an adjective. It means keen or sharp. You must use the word of the day during table talks to qualify for a ribbon. And I will give a report when called upon by the general evaluator at the end of the night. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, John. Next duty holder is going to be our all counter, which is going to be Nicholas. Can you explain your role, please?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. An important aspect of Toastmasters training is to encourage speakers to eliminate the use of and unnecessarily long pauses. As the all counter, I'm going to take the primary role in helping speakers reach this goal. I will also make sure to not do any sort of movements or anything during the prepared speeches. I obviously don't have a honk or a ring at the moment. I'll just make notes of any ahs or ums or filler words were said. I'm going to mention that as well in my report. And then at the end of the Toastmasters meeting, I'll give you my report when called upon. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, Nicholas. Our next duty holder is going to be our posture monitor, which is going to be Tanya. Tanya, can you explain your role, please?
Yes, as a posture monitor, I'll be checking to make sure that everyone is using the stage properly and that they're not grasping their hands or holding the podium tightly as they're speaking. And I'll be checking throughout the meeting, and at the end of the report, at the end of the evening, I will give a report on everyone's posture. Thank you, Toastmaster.
All right, thank you. The last duty holder can be vote counter, which is me again. So we vote on different sections of the meeting, which will be the best speaker, the best table topics, the best evaluator, and the best of the big three. So when you're called upon to vote, please just send me a chat on who you want to win for the best speaker, table topics, and so forth. And I'll tally it up and give my report at the end of the meeting when called upon. All right, so we're going to move on to my theme of the meeting, emergency preparedness. So first of all, just let you know the information. I'm gonna give you a kind of brief overall some information here, but the information I got was from ready.gov. There's a whole slew of information on this website. You know, if you want to go check it out, you know, because all the coronavirus are going on, and you know, other things like natural disasters and a whole bunch of other things can, you know, get off this website to make a plan. Which is basically first you need to do is make a plan. The kind of, there's like 4 steps of this plan that you should have. One is the you know, put together a plan by discussing, you know, 4 questions with your family, friends, or household to start your emergency plan. Those questions are: how will I receive emergency alerts and warnings? Second one is: what is my shelter plan? Third is: what is my evacuation route? And what is my family household communication plan? So these are kind of things you got kind of tailor made to, you know, your household, where you live, and, you know, based on you know, different steps like that. Step 2 is consider specific needs in your household. You know, maybe you have elderly family members that live with you, or somebody has disabilities, or maybe dietary needs, you know, pets, service animals, you know, different things like that you got to take into factor too. Now, step 3 is fill out a family emergency plan, which, you know, fill out the plans that way you can have a guideline on what you're going to do, and everybody's in the same loop and knows what's going on. And 4, practice your plan with your family. If you don't practice, and it comes in an emergency, you may not know exactly what you do, and everybody can be, you know, going this way, going that way. So you always should practice to make sure you know the correct route of evacuation and things like that. All right, so that's just a few steps. I got more, but we're going to move on to our prepared speeches right now. And our first prepared speaker is going to be Dawn, and evaluating her is Rob Giles. So Rob, can you tell us a little bit how you're going to evaluate Dawn tonight?
Mr. Toastmaster, thank you very much. Yes, Dawn is going to be giving her icebreaker speech this evening. And the purpose or the goals that accompany that are, one, for the club to get to know Dawn a little bit better, for us to find out some of the things that she does well, and then also some things that she could work on or polish and maybe incorporate into her speech and work on and use for further speeches down the road. Her time frame, I believe, if you said was, I think, 5 to 7 minutes. You can correct me if that's incorrect. And then her title
correct.
is No, I'm Not Nancy.
All right, thank you, Rob. All right, remember, Don, before you do the speech, make sure you have me pinned or have me in view on your screen so you can see the timing cards when it's ready. So let's introduce Don Levy. No, I'm not Nancy. No, I'm not Nancy. Don Levy.
Great, thank you. Is that fine? Yes?
Very good.
Great. Okay, good evening, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. My name is Dawn Levy, and tonight I will present to you my icebreaker, No, my name is not Nancy. So when I first joined Toastmasters and I learned I was going to have to give an icebreaker within a couple of weeks, I got really nervous and I thought, what am I going to say? I don't have anything that interesting to say. And then I thought, oh, I feel bad for that audience. They're going to be so bored. So I couldn't get myself to do anything. For weeks, I just kept putting it off. And then one day, not thinking about it at all, I was at work and the doorbell rang for our office suite, and I went and answered the door. Total stranger pokes her head in. She says, "Are you Nancy?" And she must have thought I was so rude because I said, "No, I'm not Nancy. I'm Dawn." And then I found who she needed and I went on my way. And then I went back in my office and I thought, I kind of like that. No, I'm not Nancy. I'm Dawn. And then I thought, but what an attitude to cop with someone I didn't know. So I'm thinking, if I can cop an attitude, I better be able to back it up with some kind of story. So tonight, I'm going to tell you how I'm Dawn. I'm not Nancy. So starting at the beginning, May 1970, I was born in Austin, Texas. At that time, there were about 250,000 people in Austin. We still have big attitudes about all these other, now there are about 750,000 more people in Austin. And so people who are native Austinites, and I don't know if any of y'all are, kind of have this attitude like that we're the originals and everyone else is just visiting and growing our city too big. So who am I? Who is Dawn? In my eyes, I'm Austin. My dad taught at UT. He taught educational psychology for about 40 years. Most of those years, he had season football tickets for the Longhorn games, and we went religiously. He had great tickets. We'd always go. One of my earlier memories is seeing Earl Campbell all the way down for a touchdown. There my brother and I were in the stands with our cool Academy burnt orange matching overalls. Too young to speak up to know that maybe that wasn't cool. We didn't care. So who am I? Who's Dawn? I'm a Longhorn. Okay, so I've always been dark-skinned year-round, and I've always gotten questions from a young age that don't bother me anymore. But when I was young, I didn't like to get questions like, what are you? Where are you from? Why are you so dark? What race are you? To which I'd always answer, human. People frequently guess that I'm Hispanic, that I'm Native American, that I'm Indian from India. And quite honestly, most of my life, I really didn't know why I was so dark, because every time I'd ask my parents, they'd go into a long explanation, which really just didn't jive with my short attention span, and they'd lose me. But kind of the bottom line I always got was that we were Sephardic Jews from Western Europe, like my grandfather's family is from Spain. Well, a couple of years ago, I did a 23andMe and found out that that's partly true, that I have about part of 1% of my genetic makeup is from Spain and Portugal, and about half of 1% is from North Africa, and 96% is what's called Ashkenazi Jew from Eastern Europe, so Poland. So really, who am I? Okay, I'm dark skinned, but my genetic makeup, you would think I'm mainly light skinned. So the dark skin genes are pretty powerful, apparently. That said, I'm mostly dark skinned, because I don't know if y'all have noticed, I have this skin condition, you can see it on my hands maybe, called vitiligo. What vitiligo is it's white patches on your skin that or patches of your skin that cause depigmentation. Another opportunity in my life to get a lot of questions about my skin. I've gotten, what happened to you? Does that hurt? Can I catch it? I've even gotten, did you dip your hands in bleach? So basically I've had to work to get thick-skinned, so to speak, so I didn't get my feelings hurt. That said, my dad had vitiligo and my maternal grandmother had vitiligo, and they both wore it proudly, didn't have a problem with it. When we were little and little kids would ask my dad, what happened to you? He'd say, it's my design. Do you like it? And inevitably, every child would always say, yeah, I do like it. So that was kind of cool to see that really it's kind of how you twist it. So who am I? I'm a dark-skinned lady with some white skin patches. My mom is from England, outside of Manchester. She came to America when she married my dad, probably like 52 years ago. And she's what we used to call a granola back in Austin. She wore Birkenstocks before everybody wore Birkenstocks. when everyone else's moms were like driving their new Mercedes or their wood paneled station wagon, my mom was cruising around town on her little moped. Once again, had to have some thick skin because she liked to stand out from the crowd. And, you know, being a kid, I did not want to stand out from the crowd. I wanted to fit right in. So who am I? I'm the daughter of one of Austin's early granolas. All right, when I was a senior in high school, I have a very clear memory of being in Miss Anderson's English class, talking about what do we want to be when we grow up. And I had a very clear, well laid out, meticulous plan, which was, I don't care what I do, I just want to be outside. That was my whole ambition. I just wanted to be outside. I didn't care what I did. Anyway, that has not worked out yet. And I do mean yet, because I still have ambitions that I will get a job outside. But I taught elementary school for nearly 10 years, and I've been over at SMU working in research for about 11 years. So who am I? I'm someone who loves actually working with people, but preferably outside. The week that many of us thought doomsday, end of the world, New Year's turned into 2000, I found out that I was pregnant. And on September 11th, 2000, I gave birth to my first precious son, Joshua Khalil. 3 years later, I gave birth to my second precious child, Avery Lund. So I am my mom. And now you're probably thinking, she's right, this is boring. So who's Nancy? Okay, so who is Nancy? Is a young woman in my office. She's 20 years my junior. She's Vietnamese. She's studying maybe statistics, something I could never do. She's single. She has no kids. I know nothing about her parents except for that they're in Vietnam. My guess is she doesn't know or care what a longhorn is. She has skin much lighter than mine, and her skin is all one color. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
All right, so our next speaker tonight is going to be Mark Schroeder, and evaluating him is Lee King. So you can explain how you're going to evaluate Mark, Lee?
Actually, I did not receive objectives from Mark. Mark, do you have your objectives?
Sadly, this is effectively off manual because it's just the right kind of speech to do for this. Do a general one, please.
Okay.
All right, so you're going to do a general evaluation. All right, so we'll move on to our speaker. This is Mark Schroeder. I'm sorry, Mark, I never got a title from you.
Oh, it's on the agenda that I posted online.
Crap, I'm sorry, I didn't print out the new one.
And I've forgotten what I called it. I think I may have called it from Do to Pro.
Fix it and post.
Oh, fix it in post. That was my second. Yeah, fix it in post. Thank you.
All right, so Mark Schroeder with Fix It and Post. Fix It and Post, Mark Schroeder.
If you would give me just 1 second to get the screen share up.
No problem.
You just took a really good photo. Whoops. And that photo is one that you're going to be really proud of. But what if you could take that photo and with just a couple simple swipes, make that photo so much better? What if you could take your really good photo and turn it into an amazing photo by just removing things like the bars from the cage? Good evening, everyone. This is Mark Schroeder. I'm going to talk about photo editing with GIMP. Everyone who's got a smartphone also has a photo editing app. And those photo editing apps on your phone can do things like cropping. They can straighten a photo so that, like, the ocean is not leaning to one side, because we both know water doesn't really do that. You can adjust color. So I'm not going to talk about any of those things because you've got a phone app for it. I'm going to talk about a little bit more advanced techniques that you can use with a program called GIMP. GIMP is available free. It is also known as the poor man's Photoshop. Pretty much everyone knows what Photoshop is. Photoshop is about $700 or $800 the last time that I had to buy one. It has now gone to subscription. It's $130 per year. GIMP is 100% free, available for Windows or Mac. And I'm going to show you a few of the capabilities of that tonight. The main things that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to, let's see, where did it go? There it is. I'm going to talk about these particular aspects. I'm going to talk about layers, masks, levels, clone, and context-aware fill. I'm going to start with a different photo. Photo I'm going to start with is a photo of a family. So let's bring up the photo of the family real quick. This is a photo that would be pretty typical. Anybody could take a photo like this, but it has some problems, obviously. So let's talk about layers first real quick. When we're talking about layers, what layers are, imagine, if you will, everything in this is effectively like a physical process, like it used to be when it was done on paper before anything changed in terms of doing it electronically. So imagine that you take your photo and you lay it down on the table. That is a layer. You can then make a new layer, which is completely transparent. It's like putting a sheet of cellophane on it, or you can make a copy of the layer. Here I have two copies, and as you can see, one is above the other. And if I go over here, and I'm going to select a brush real quick, and let me just make the brush a little bit bigger. If I scribble on the painting or scribble on the photo, then I have scribbled on only that layer. And if I make that layer disappear by making it invisible, you can see that the layer underneath it is still there. I'm going to go ahead and make it visible again. This is a way of, again, making, you can think of it literally as I put down a piece of cellophane and I paint it on the cellophane. And when I make it invisible, it's like picking that layer off the pile. The second thing that I want to talk about, and I'm going to go back and undo those. Oops. Put that back in my menu, please. Drag it up. Sorry, got to drag that one back in. It will not just drop in there, will it? Come on. Okay, I'll just leave it out here, then it's fine. So if I go back and start just from the new layer, the concept of a mask. What a mask is an area that is selected to work on. So if I do the selection tool and I make a rectangle, what you may see, I'm not sure how fast it's going to refresh, but you'll see that there are like trailing ants around the edge of that particular diagram. It is also like a layer of cellophane over the picture. The difference being that if I go look at what it has done, it is basically like a red layer of cellophane, and it used to really be done with red cellophane, with a cutout in it. The area that is cut out is the area that I'm going to work on. If I take the very same pen that I had before and I start to scribble, notice how it only works on the edges. It stops at the edges. And if I go back and show you, you can see exactly that it stops at the edges. This is basically what a mask is. And masks are used for selectively editing. If I just merely undo the paintbrush that I had, let's go all the way back and remove all of them. If I go back and remove all of the paintbrushes, the thing that is different is that I can also go do things like adjust the colors. And if I go and say I want to mess with the brightness or the darkness, you can also see that that only affects the area that's selected as well. I'm going to show you how you can use that to improve this photo quite a bit. What I have to do is I have to go back to my original with the new layer. The girl on the lower left is fine. The guy is not. So what we're going to have to do here is do an adjustment on that. And do one other thing here. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to make a mask that will allow me to adjust selectively the child on the right. I'm going to do that with what's called a gradient. The gradient is going to build me a filter that is, well, it's going to basically go from light to dark. Let me do that one more time. I'm going to make it a little bit wider. But this is what it looks like, okay? It's going to do that kind of a filter. And so, come back. Oh no, I killed it. I think I really did kill this process. I hate it when that happens. All right, bring it back up. That's gonna mess up my time, but okay. File, open, bring back family. Family is right there, open, reconvert. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is we're gonna make mask right across there. And what that's gonna give me is a mask that selectively does more in that area. I said I was going to talk about levels. So let's go to levels. The histogram here, what that shows you is there's a lot of light because the right-hand side is the white, the left-hand side is dark. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase where it thinks the darkness starts. So make more things black, basically. And as I also adjust the midpoint, the 50% point, no, it's bringing in too much. Okay, I don't think I've got it right. Let me check that mask again. Whoops. Select all. Come down here. Gradient. Give me that. Back out. Layer, colors, level. Try this again. There we go. Only starts adjusting the person up in the upper corner. So notice if I go back and look at what the original looked like, washed out. If I compare that with the final result, which is down here, much better. And the little girl on the left did not change much at all. So that's an adjustment using levels. Let's go look at another kind of adjustment. I'm going to go look at clone. So it's also possible, we're going to pick up a picture of, another really good picture of a pelican. I have to pick that one up. And I'm going to blow this one up a little bit. Really nice picture of a pelican. Oops. There's only one problem with this particular picture, and it is we've got divers down in the bottom. They're in the way. One of the ways we're going to do to get rid of them is called the clone tool. So I'm going to select the clone tool. What the clone tool does is it picks up something from one spot and moves it to another spot. Let me make this just a little bit smaller. I want it about 40. That's even maybe still a little bit too big. Let's make it a little bit smaller. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select an area that's nearby, like that, and then I'm just going to paint over him. He's gone. Select an area here, paint over him. If I'm careful, I can even select an area. I'm going to select an area really carefully right along the pipe. And I'm going to move over right along the pipe. Guess what? I can make him go away too. So that's a way of doing that with the clone tool. And there's another tool that is provided in GIMP as a plugin, and I'll show you how to use that. If I use the select tool up here, I'm going to select somebody just by drawing a circle around them. Close the circle. Always interesting with this pen to try to get the circle closed exactly. There we go. If I go up here and use a tool, a special tool called the resynthesizer, which does the context-aware fill, I say heal selection, and I wanted to sample from all around the picture, random, and because it's a pretty much random view, all I got to do is click that and gone. Come over here, select another one. Get it to close. And because it's set to the right things, all I have to do is repeat. And gone. So you can see how very quickly you can make easy changes to improve a photo like this. The context aware does not always do everything entirely right. It does have a couple of issues. Let me check on one thing real quick. I need to go see Dagan. Nope, yellow. Okay, good. I am still yellow. I'm gonna pick up one more photo and show one more instance of this real quick. If I were to open Crosswalk, Crosswalk is another good example. This is pretty much random in terms of the concrete. If I were to pick up one of these, well, let's see, did they get it exactly right? And then come up here, filters, repeat, and it disappears as well. So it really does need a kind of a random background in order to work properly. But this is an example of how to use the 5 tools that I just mentioned in order to take your photos to the next level with GIMP. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, Mark. All right, clap. Yay. All right, so before I move on, I'll give the timed report. Both speakers went over on time. So neither qualified. That's all right. So let's move on. I'm going to give you a little more information about emergency preparedness here. Hold on. All right. Another thing you should do is, gather your financial preparedness. Gather your financial and critical personal, household, and medical information. Consider saving money in an emergency savings account that can be used in any crisis. Or keep a small amount of cash at home in a safe place. It's important to have small bills on hand, in case ATMs or credit cards may not work during a disaster, and we need to purchase necessity supplies, fuel and food, things like that. Obtain property, homeowners or renters' health, life insurance if you do not have them. Not all insurance policies are the same, so make sure you review your insurance policies based on the kind natural disasters we have. Like tornadoes, pretty much common around here. Flooding could be an issue depending on where you live. If you live near a creek or something like that, that could be potentially flood during heavy rains. Because a lot of insurance do not cover flood insurance. Also, you should be kind of tech savvy too. You receive your alerts from your phone, from FEMA, National Weather Service. You can sign up for FEMA to get text messages for any kind of disasters going on. And of course, before disaster, follow local government and social media to stay on top of, up to date with any information going on, before, during, or even after a disaster. So there's just a few basic things you can think of, make a plan, make sure all your insurances are up to date, get on the proper programs to receive the alerts. And like I said, there's a ton of information on ready.com to help you plan and prepare and what you need to know, especially like a survival kit and things like that. All right, so I'm going to move on to table topics now. And our table topic master is going to be John Vessels. So John, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dagan. I'm your table topics host for tonight. And table topics is that time where we will learn to speak off the cuff. When you get that random question from your boss about something, or when you're in a social situation and you need just to make small talk and maybe visit with somebody that you might be interested in. Table Topics helps you with that. We learn to help you speak off the cuff, pick any subject, go for it, and that's what we're going to practice in this section of the meeting. Now, each table topic speech needs to be at least 1 minute and not more than 2.5. So Dagan, keep him tagged because he will show you the timing slides, and also keep me tagged because along with meeting time, you must use the word of the day. And the word of the day is, oops, trenchant. Sorry. Trenchant means keen or sharp. So let's go on to our table topics. And my first table topics is going to go to Nicholas. So Nicholas, how are you dealing with the sheltering in place, and what are you doing?
Thank you, Table Topics Master. Well, firstly, I am keeping my wits about me and keeping as trenchant as possible in this dire time. I'm also very, very bored, like I'm sure all of you are, staying at home and watching TV or taking care of the kids or walking the dogs. I'm doing much of the same. I'm walking the dogs every day. I'm running, exercising, trying to get those bad moods or bad thoughts out of me, in this situation in time. Hopefully within the next month, or hopefully not, a month and a half or 2 months, everything will start to reopen and jobs will start again, and people will not look at each other with disdain if someone coughs or sneezes or bellows. I don't know what certain people do, but in this time, everyone just needs to chill out a little bit, take some family time, and enjoy the life we have around us. Mr. Table Topics Master.
All right. Thank you, Nicholas. Yes, there is a certain amount of boredom involved in not being able to go much of anywhere because there's nothing open either. So I'm probably going to put up all the weight I've lost because there's nothing else to do but eat and watch TV. So we'll try to avoid that as best I can. Now I'm going to move on to Mark Sims. Mark, how prepared were you when this pandemic hit and all the sheltering in place came about?
Not very prepared. I was not trenchant enough to anticipate a pandemic. I have no excuse because in my occupation as a bank examiner, over the years, I've actually read the plans that some banks had to be prepared for a pandemic, and I thought that was the silliest thing I'd ever heard of. I guess it wasn't so silly. Now, in my defense, I did have a little extra water in the house, and then I did have some canned goods because at some point, maybe about a year or so ago, I started going through the thought process, not worrying about a pandemic, but worrying about a potential cyber attack that maybe curtailed electricity or impacted commerce. So I wasn't 100% unprepared, but mentally, psychologically, I was taken aback by the incredible rapid change in conditions where for one day going about business as usual, and then almost overnight, things are shutting down and we're almost going into a full-blown crisis mode. Hopefully I will never have another pandemic to live through in my lifetime, so hopefully I will not get better at this in the future or have to get better. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Tanya. Oh, cough. Anyway, So what have you learned from our pandemic situation we're going through now?
Yes. So I do not feel trenchant about the topic per se of COVID-19, but we do need to make sure that we are doing social distance, which means you stay, 6 feet apart from another person, and that you wash your hands well with soap and water. You should sing the birthday song so that you are spending at least 20 seconds to wash your hands. And who knew 20 seconds was so long until you really do try washing your hands for 20 seconds. So most of us probably don't do that until now that we are at home and having to stay sheltered in. Now that the judge has asked for everyone living in Dallas County, and I believe now all the counties around us, to stay put, to stay home, and that you are not supposed to travel anywhere unless you work in an essential occupation. And so I believe that I am currently considered essential because I teach children, and we have to provide them with food and resources so that we can homeschool our children. And so that has been a challenge for many parents, including myself. But if you're sick also, please stay home. Do not go to the hospital. Use telehealth to contact a doctor or contact your doctor. Really take care and be careful and stay away from sick people, elderly people especially, but now anybody, I believe, can potentially get COVID-19. So all of us need to follow the rules and do our best so that we can all stay healthy. Thank you, Topics Master.
Yay. Thank you, Tanya. And I got one more question here. Jody, just how many rolls of toilet paper does a person need? You're muted, so unmute your mic. Jody, unmute.
Okay, I was too excited.
There you go.
That's an awesome question. First of all, I didn't have the luck to find toilet paper before I started to self-quarantine with my parents who are from Italy. And before I realized that all the toilet paper are off the shelf. And I do have to say this is a phenomenal unique to the United States, because I have friends in Asia, friends in Italy, especially Italy, Spain. Most of them are just storing food, but people are like, why are you guys trying to store toilet paper? And I couldn't answer that question. Second of all, I started seeing all the videos making fun all over Facebook about this. And there's this one video especially funny. This lady, she was there with toilet paper roll on the top and folding this way. And she started singing this opera song about toilet paper. And that was funny. And to answer your question, I did do my estimation. So my estimation is about 1 roll of toilet paper per person per week. And if you go that way, I think I can last for a month. And then after that, my plan is to buy a bidet. And then from here. Thank you, Toastmaster.
Yeah, thank you, Jody. That was great. Yeah, I don't think anybody in this world, even the people buying toilet paper, could really justify why they were buying toilet paper so much. But a bidet would be a good thing. I think that, would save toilet paper. Yes. But anyway, so that's going to be the end of my table topics for tonight. And I would like to first ask the timekeeper, did everyone qualify on time?
Yes, everybody qualified on time.
Okay. And Mr. Grammarian, did everybody use the word of the day? Well, Jody did not use trenchant, the word of the day. So everybody else is good for a ribbon possibility, and that's Nicholas or Mark Sims or Tanya Howard. So if you would take a moment and vote to who you thought they did the best job on table topics tonight. And I will return to Dagan eating his cookie. Mr. Table Topics, or Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, John. So when we're voting, please remember to send me a private chat on who you picked. And I don't have any more to talk about right now, so I will turn it over to Mark Sims, our general evaluator.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. This is the evaluation portion of the meeting. What I'll do is introduce the speech evaluators, then I'll introduce the duty holders, and then I'll give some comments of my own on how I believe the meeting went. Our first speaker was Dawn Levy, giving her icebreaker. Her evaluator is Rob Giles. So Rob, please discuss far as Dawn's speech.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow members, and especially you, Dawn. I'm going to give you a few points that I think you did very well tonight, and a couple that you might want to consider thinking about to include or incorporate for perhaps your next speech. And then finally, I'm going to let you know a couple of things that I really loved about your speech. So the first thing that I thought you did really well was the organization and the way that you did that with explaining who you are, and then at the end explaining who Nancy is. And I thought that that was a great way to do it. A couple other ways that you could have done it, but I thought that was great. It encapsulated what you were, who you are, and then you went on and told us a little bit about who Nancy was, giving us an idea of why you are not Nancy. Another thing that I thought you did very well was to actually tie in the title of the speech. You gave us the title, we had the title from the introduction, but as you went about through each point, you said who you were, and then you said, I'm not Nancy. And so you gave us that repetition to help ingrain to us who you are and who you're not. So I thought you did great with that. Another thing that I thought you did well with was the gestures that you used. I thought your gestures were great. You talked about who you were and that you weren't Nancy, and you moved your hands in that way. You also used the hook 'em horns. So I really appreciated that. You did a great job with that as well. And then finally, when you were talking about the condition that you have with your hands, you actually showed us your hands. So it was a great way for us to know exactly what you were talking about. So I thought you did a great job with that. A couple of things that I thought that you could maybe think about is at the very beginning of your speech, you started telling us about how you were thinking about you were going to have to give your icebreaker, and that it made you anxious. I think you could have probably gotten rid of all of that content and just started off with possibly you're walking to your office and you open the door and the person asks you, are you Nancy? And I think that would have been a great intro, and you could have gotten rid of some of that other stuff. It could have helped to shorten some of the length of time, which is another thing that I think that you might want to think about, is either get a better accuracy for how long the time is that it is for your speech, and then either let the timer know it's going to be a little bit longer than that. And I know that you had some changes in that, but perhaps you needed a little bit more time in that regard. And the content, eliminating that first part of the speech, might have helped with that as well. At the very end, you were kind of rushed, I thought. And that was what I felt when you were trying to explain who Nancy is. Could have maybe expanded that a little bit and gave us a little bit more specifics and not felt as rushed through that. Finally, some things that I thought you did really well, or that I loved about the speech, I should say. And one is the content. We learned so much about you, which is what the icebreaker is all about. So I want to thank you for giving all that great information. I think we know you a lot better than we did prior to tonight. And then finally, I thought you looked very comfortable up on stage. And I don't think that you really came across as nervous at all. So I think that that's something that you can really hang on to and feel confident for your next speech coming up. So a few things. One, the organization, the way that you did, you and then Nancy, you did a great job with that. The way that you kept the repetition of that you are not Nancy as you went through and who you are. And then finally, I thought that the gestures that you used were great. And a couple of things that you might want to think about is maybe removing at least that part of the speech at the beginning, get right to the speech and get going in that regard. And then that might help to shorten down the time for you. So think about those things. Thank you so much for giving your icebreaker. It was great. I loved it. I can't wait to hear your next speech. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Rob. Our second speaker was Mark Schroeder. He is going to be evaluated by Lee King. So please give us your evaluation for Mark.
Mark, I'm going to give you an evaluation, just a general evaluation on this particular speech. I thought you did really well, and give you a couple of pointers to work on in the future, and then mention one thing that I thought worked for you extremely well. First, I liked the topic. I thought the topic was a very good topic, being that we're doing this on a virtual platform. I think it was easier doing it this way than it would have been at Ozona. Also, I feel like your speech was very timely. I like how you did it on photo editing, and that's something that we could all do right now. We've got plenty of time, and I'm sure we've got plenty of digital photos that we can go through and enhance or tweak or make changes. And then I like how you gave us so many examples of how this particular program works, how GIMP works in editing photos and what we can do with it. And I also learned that there's a lot of features to this, to the free GIMP version, that gives us a lot of options. So I really appreciated that. A couple of things that I would suggest that you consider working on. First would be maybe if there is a way that you could have some of your screens already loaded on your taskbar on your computer, so that you would just be flipping from one screen to another on your taskbar, as opposed to pulling up each screen one screen at a time. I felt like that cost you some time, and perhaps you wouldn't have gone over if you had that already lined up, ready to go in your taskbar. Although I'm not sure how many of one photos you can have going at one time. So I don't really know if that's a particularly, I guess, valid critique. But if there is any way that you can line things up on your taskbar, I would suggest you do that. Another suggestion is to go back and revisit your manuals, because this is definitely a technical speech, and I felt like you could have easily done a technical presentation from the traditional program that, with our newer members, would have really given them an opportunity to learn what the legacy program was like and what some of the different types of speeches that we can offer in Toastmasters. For example, perhaps maybe even if it was just working on your timing and everything, perhaps you could have created the video and then displayed the video, shared your desktop and showed the video, which I believe is actually one of the objectives in the technical speeching, as in technical speeches manual. So again, just review the manuals. But the one thing that I thought you did really well on was just showing us step-by-step how we can use this program. And I definitely can tell that you're very familiar with the program. Thanks for a great speech. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Lee. At this time, I'd like to ask our timer, Dagan Newland, if the evaluators met their time limits. Dagan, we cannot hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Only Lee King met his time.
Okay, thank you. In that case, we will not need to vote on the best evaluator. There are two very thoughtful evaluations, but there will be no need for a vote. What I'd like to do at this time is introduce the duty holders. First, I will start with our grammarian, John Vessels. John, please give your report.
Well, thank you, Mark. Pretty good use of the speeches. Okay, here we go. Everybody speaking tonight. This is a funny thing that I just wrote down and now I did it. Nicholas, at the beginning, when he was talking about his duties, and Lee just now both said speeching instead of speaking. And just, you know, I did it too, and it's like, why isn't it speeching? But it was just really funny because it just happened once and then it happened again, and then I can't even look at it without saying it like that. So that was just kind of interesting. Bad. A couple of things I heard vitiligo talking about Dawn and about what vitiligo is, and that's, you know, it's always a nice good word to learn. And granola, I did not know that granola meant kind of a hippie or, you know, the Birkenstock kind of out there person. So that was interesting too. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to hear from our counter, Nicholas Elwood.
Great. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. For the awe counter, I noticed that there were a few ahs, ums, filler words. We had Dawn, you had about 6 ahs or ums that I noticed in the speech. But besides that, it was very, very well thought out and polished speech. Mark, I noticed that there was one and there were just a couple pauses that I noticed throughout the speech as well. So I annotated those. Correct me if I don't need to add those or take note of those. And do you want me to speak about the table topic speakers as well? Mark, you just had one in yours. I actually had one that I noticed as well. So I noted that. Tanya, you had 4 ums that I noticed in your speech. And Jody had 3 that I noticed in her speech. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you. And this time, I'd like to hear from our posture bell duty holder, Tanya Howard.
Yes, everyone, you're considering that we are remote presenting. So great job, everyone.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to give my own thoughts on the meeting. I know we got started a few minutes late, not much. I clocked it at starting at 6:52, but that is not bad given that this is only our second virtual meeting and we're still somewhat getting used to things, adjusting very rapidly, I might say. We had good attendance tonight, 10 members and 1 guest, so thank you so much for joining us, ma'am. I greatly appreciate that. You're a very dedicated guest to join us on a virtual meeting. The theme was very appropriate, and I learned a little bit about emergency preparedness some years ago when I lived in a condo in Uptown, and for whatever reason, sometimes by vandalism, sometimes through malfunction, on occasion a fire alarm would go off in the middle of the night, loud enough to wake the dead. And since you never knew if it was a real fire or a malfunction, you would have to throw on some clothing, and then in the event that it was a real fire, I recall on one occasion taking my work computer with me so that it would not burn up in the flames. Fortunately, it didn't come to that. And Dagan specifically was reminded of some things from you. For example, to have some amount of cash around. We generally don't carry as much cash as we used to because the credit card payment is so prominent. But it is helpful in case the ATMs could well mess up, and that's a very real consideration. And you also reminded us that your homeowner's insurance most likely does not cover floods. And every year where there's a major flood disaster somewhere, the newscasters make that same point, that unless you bought flood insurance, then you're probably out of luck. So those are excellent points to keep in mind. A couple of notes from some of our duty holders and other role members during the night. And I thought, Nicholas, that you did a good job in introducing or discussing your role of the counter. And that's especially important when we're together, for example, at Azona's and you're clicking something so a guest doesn't think that you're going crazy, you're just being rude. So that was a good explanation of the counter role. Likewise, John, I thought you did a good job in introducing the importance of the table topics part of the meeting. I enjoyed different things about the two speeches tonight. Don, I'm always amazed at some of the uniqueness in people's icebreakers. While the content of your speech was pretty direct in a type of giving us an autobiography, the title is amazing. When I first heard it, No, I'm Not Nancy, it just grabs your attention right away, as opposed to My Life or me, Don Levy. No, I'm Not Nancy. So that is a terrific title. And Mark Schroeder, your speech was very informative, although the part where you showed the crosswalk, I was so tempted just to holler out, hey, is that the Beatles? I guess you get the historical reference, but I wisely kept that to myself because that would have been a little bit rude. I noted at one time there was some background noise, but it almost sounded like a dog either barking or whining. So that is going to occur on virtual meetings, but kept that to very limited. And again, I think I've referenced this, but I thought the two evaluations were very thoughtful. So overall, again, this is amazing that we are doing so well on a virtual meeting, which is just a great opportunity because, again, otherwise the option would be to simply not meet. And so this is really terrific. Definitely enjoyed the meeting tonight. And even if I can't get out of the house and go to Azona's, we can all get together online. At this point, I'd like to call for a vote of the best of the big three. And you can vote from between either our Toastmaster, Dagan Newland, our Table Topics Master, John Vessels, or me, Mark Sims, the General Evaluator. And with that, I will turn that back over to our Toastmaster, Dagan Newland, to see if he has any final comments.
Point of order.
No, I do not. I guess I'll turn it over to our President Lee King.
Okay. Just a few announcements. Rob, did you need something? Rob? I noticed you've got your thumb. Or you?
No, I didn't need anything. No.
No,
Okay.
that was me. Who do we send those votes to?
Me, Dagan.
Just checking.
Okay. All right, just a few things. First of all, let's welcome Linda back to our group for this evening. So thank you, Linda, for joining us. We already know how you found us and everything. But I will give you the opportunity. Is there anything that you would like to add about tonight's meeting?
Unmute.
I'm trying. I don't even have the ability to unmute her. I'm not sure why.
Linda, you'll need to unmute if you can.
Can you hear me
There
now?
you go.
We hear you now.
I'm really, really glad I got a chance to see you guys. I have been asking people how Dallas single/social was doing, and nobody really had any information for me. You guys look great. I'm really, really happy to see you. I thoroughly enjoy the speeches, and I'll visit again when the time permits. Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right, I think I really only have 3 things to really discuss this evening. First is I noticed that on the D50 Facebook page, it looks like they are putting together, there's a website out there that is an area where we can actually post our Zoom meetings when we meet, and I guess our Zoom account, and share that with the district. I know that there was some concern about someone popping in and showing things that they shouldn't be showing. So I think that was the reason why we had discussed going with the password. But I was also thinking that by putting ourselves out on D50, it might bring us some more guests and possibly members, both while we're here virtual as well as once we start meeting at Ozona again. So I wanted to ask and get some feedback. Do we want to put our name on the list of clubs that are doing virtual meetings along with our information?
So I'm VP of PR. I would say yes. Whether or not we put it out with the password or not is TBD. My understanding is that D50, pretty much to be on that, you've got to be a Toastmaster already. I'm a little bit less worried about getting Zoom bombed by other Toastmasters trying to share their screen with porn. Anybody else? Because once they've got the meeting ID, if it doesn't have a password, we can't stop them. But so I wouldn't want to do it on a meetup. I wouldn't want to do it on our Facebook page. If it's a Facebook page, I wouldn't want to put it quite there either, because it might be too visible to everybody unless we can prove that D50 really is restricted membership to other Toastmaster groups.
Yeah, I'm not positive. I think I'll have to go back and look at it again and see. Now I can't remember. It might also be up on the D50 website, but
yeah, if it's on the D50 website, we'd have to just say, put in a phone number to get the password.
Bless you.
Yes, we can definitely do that. So that is something that we would want to pursue then at this point.
I would like to pursue it. I think we should.
Okay. The next item of business, and again, this I don't think really pertains to anybody here on this meeting, but the International has decided to extend the requirement for club coach, club mentor, area director. So if all you're missing is your advanced leader silver, you can submit that distinguished Toastmaster next year. So in the end of June of 21, as opposed to 2020. So I just wanted to pass that along. I think Linda Green, I think you've already got your DTM. So I actually don't think that pertains to anybody here, but
I'm actually in, I just missed a project, but.
I'm sorry?
How about for the people who miss other projects, not the one you mentioned? Are they going to be mentioned?
Yeah, so my understanding is it's actually only for the ALS award. I guess it's because if you're in quarantine, you may not be able to do your area club visits. Like if the clubs aren't meeting, for example, then they would not be able to fulfill that requirement. So at this point, that's my understanding, but I'll definitely let you know if other things. Otherwise, just keep in mind that June 30th is the deadline for anything else in the legacy program. And then finally, the other thing that International has done is they have extended the deadline for dues. So if you've not paid your dues, you actually now have until April the 30th to pay your dues instead of March 30th. So they gave everybody an extra 30 days. And Dagan, how are we doing as far as dues?
Yeah, we still have a few people that have not paid yet, but I use the Square to set up automatic reminders, which I can go back and extend that because I think my last reminder will go out in a couple of days. So for those that didn't pay, we'll obviously get a reminder by email.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, see, we do have the extra month. And again, this is probably more for PR, but this did just come to my mind. I believe that this shelter in place order is now through April the 26th or something like that. So I believe that we won't be back at Ozona until May. Anybody hear anything different?
I don't heard anything different, and that would not surprise me at all.
Okay.
They've already made that announcement. Clyde Jenkins, is that his name? He's already made that announcement?
I believe so. Yes. Or maybe it's Collin County and Denton County and Tarrant County are doing it through the end of April. And I think I heard the Dallas County also had extended it.
Okay.
So just know that we'll probably be doing this for a longer period of time, which means that we will need to potentially look at figuring out how we're going to do officer elections virtually.
So the April 26th date, is that the initial assessment? Because this might be bigger than we thought, right? Because the reason why we see that many cases is because we don't have enough testing kits. So they announced they're like 300, but it might be 3,000 already.
Correct. There's definitely been more cases in Dallas County than what I think they had originally expected, or what they had expected, I should say. Does anybody else have anything that they want to share this evening?
I was just looking to see if I could find an altered order. I was unable to find one, just for what it's worth.
Okay. We'll keep everybody posted, but I'm not even sure if Ozona is even open right now. So I was going to say, inform Ozona, but I think they're closed.
It's open for takeout, but it's not. Yeah, you can take out but that's it. Because I'll go by there. Yeah, they're open for takeout.
Interesting. So is the bar open? Can you get a drink to go?
Yes. In Dallas County, they're allowed, huh?
You can take out a drink, but you don't get it at the bar necessarily. You have to, and you have to order.
Right, but I mean, yeah. But you can take one drink out with a meal order.
Interesting.
I did go to Costco in the morning to pick up a bottle of wine.
Alcohol does help.
Well, there is a reason for that.
So we do.
I went to a Mexican restaurant and did the same thing, and we took 3 drinks home. The reason for it is there's a higher profit margin on alcohol. It is an attempt to give them some extra income to make up for the lack of sales they're getting on food.
Hey, we can do a Toastmaster house drink party next time.
There you go.
There you go. All right. Does anybody else have anything? All right. Well, with that, then, Dagan, do you want to share the vote counter report with us?
Okay. Me and my little whiny dog here is going to give out the votes. That's who you heard in the background earlier when Mark mentioned about a whiny dog. So we'll start with the known, which is going to be our best evaluator, which is the King, and our best table topic speaker was Nicholas.
Thank you.
The best of the big 3, was me. So thank you. And that's it.
All right. Y'all have a good rest of the night.
Yeah.
Right. Safe week, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Be careful.
Recording
And
now.
Nicholas, good luck on your first day of work.
Thank you so much. Don.
Weird one.
Bye.
I'm stopping
Bye.
at this point.